The top guns are out on the PGA Tour this week. Rory McIlroy, a recent winner, but Scottie Scheffler still the favorite. Take your pick here on the roundtable, boys.
It is a quick trip to the poorhouse if you want to fade Scottie Scheffler, Benny.
Rory McIlroy, he's going to smash Sheff. He's going to smash the field.
Well, if we've learned anything from this video from Ben Griffin, you better hit the fairways at Torrey Pines this week for the Genesis Invitational. All things betting on the Golfbet Roundtable here. Chris Brees, Ben Everill, and Will Gray. A different week, Will, but that means we have more info to give winners' picks, right?
We're back, yeah. 3 weeks since leaving Torrey Pines for the Farmers Insurance Open. We're back for the Genesis Invitational. I know Ben's got the on-site perspective that we'll get into shortly, but yeah, this is always a test on the South Course where you got to keep the ball in the fairway, but as Ben Griffin showed us, especially this week, especially potentially with some weather in store, right, Benny?
100% Will, yeah. We've got rain coming in Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, all expected here at Torrey Pines. That's a problem with that rough. 3.5 inches they cut it at on Monday. They've told me they're not cutting it again, no matter what. It's going to grow. It's going to get juicier. I went out and tested the Ben Griffin theory out there a little earlier. It's brutal already. It's going to be tough. It's a grind. Let's go.
We'll get into all the weather, the optics. Should you be picking guys who are trendy at Torrey Pines? But we got to start, guys, with Rory and Scottie. All the stars are here, sans Scheffler this week. What team are you on? What camp are you in? Obviously, Scottie has the super low odds and Rory not too far behind. Will, Rory or Scottie this week if you had to pick one of the two?
Definitely 1A and 1B in the eyes of odds makers. Rory coming off that win a couple weeks ago at Pebble. I'm still going to side with Scottie Scheffler. I feel like that is just my instinctive reflex over the last 12 months. I'm starting to learn when in doubt, just back Scottie Scheffler and whatever you're talking about. He did blow up in surprising fashion, shot a 41 on the back nine on Sunday at the WM to fall back. But I still think, man, he's got such a high floor. The worst case scenario for Scottie Scheffler is like a T15 finish in this 72-man field where you're only going to have a few people that you're going to toss at the 36-hole cut. Pebble Beach is not Torrey Pines. I don't know that Rory's going to have as much shot-making creativity, as much place to go off the tee as he did a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to take the Chef, who has come out off that injury, and he's played pretty well. Top 10 at Pebble, was right in the mix, contending last week through about 63 holes before the wheels fell off. There's nothing wrong with Scottie Scheffler, Ben. Prove me wrong.
Rory. You've got to have an absolute long game here. And if we're talking who's going to smash it further, it's Rory. He's going to smash the ball all around this joint. And that's going to be a big advantage if you are in that rough. He's pretty accurate as well. Look, he's only played the one event, but if he was ranked on tour right now for strokes gained off the tee and tee to green, he'd be number one. Was just phenomenal. What he did at Pebble, on the 14th hole, when he cut the corner and showed what he can do with his driver, that's going to be huge this week. If he has it anywhere near on the map, he's going to be very tough to beat this entire weekend. Look, Scheffler, I know you said 41 on the back. Let's not read too much into it. I agree with you. I think that once he realized he couldn't win, he took the foot off the gas and prepared himself for this week. He's going to be in the mix. I just think Rory has got the distance edge. And if you have to give me one or the other, it's Rory.
You know, this is a chance, guys, for Rory to go back to that elite status that he had a decade ago, when if you weren't picking Rory, you were massively, potentially missing out. Will, it almost feels too early for me to assume that Rory's going to go back to that mongrel that Ben likes to call it, of being the guy to beat, because from what we've seen Rory the last 5 to 6 years, it's, okay, play well, win randomly. Play well, go a long time without winning, and win again. If he can do this twice in a couple of weeks, he's back. But I don't know if I'm ready to say that's going to happen as of right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of Rory McIlroy's alpha status on the PGA Tour might be determined more as we get a little closer to Magnolia Lane. I don't know how much of that he's going to be able to sort through over these next couple of weeks, even heading into the Players. It is going to go a long way if he's able to back this up. I mean, last year he had 2 wins, albeit one was in the team event, Zurich, with Shane Lowry, and it still felt a little bit disappointing as we got towards the end and how he fared in the playoffs when he looked back at 2024 and what might have been on some of the bigger stages. So now if he goes back-to-back and wins his first 2 events, especially off of a good start on the DP World Tour before Pebble Beach. There's something to be said for maybe he is really kind of stepping out ahead of it in a year where Scottie Scheffler's start was delayed. Xander Schauffele remains on the DL. There's some confluence of factors involved, but I still want to see more from Rory in that April through August run before I'm going to say, yes, we're back to talking about 2014, 2015 Rory.
What happened after that Zurich win with Rory last year? Didn't he go out and maybe win at Quail Hollow right afterwards? I think that the Alpha Beast is there. I think he knows everyone's talking Scottie Scheffler, and for great reason, right? Scheffler has been the dominant force in golf. Like, we have to admit that. But right now, Rory has a chance to say, not only don't forget about me what I did at Pebble, but I'm going to back it up and stick it to you all here as well. If he can do that, then yes, we're going to start to see some big talk leading into those bigger events, leading into the Players, leading into the Masters. And how good would that be, boys? How good would that be?
I think Ben's just protecting himself from that Scheffler debacle he had last year. Because it sounds like, Will, that Rory is his new Scottie, and he's going to win 8 times this year, and Ben's going to have his tail between his legs.
We'll see. I think it's early to. We're not quite to the Ben Scheffler 2024 remix levels yet, but we've got a long way to go still this season. It's going to be interesting to see how both these guys fare, though. As we said, they're 1A and 1B in the eyes of odds makers. It definitely makes sense for them to be in that position, but I think there's, if you play this out 10,000 times, you're not necessarily going to have them both at the top of the board. You could have a situation this week where one maybe falters a little bit less than the other.
All right, let's talk weather. Ben, you're out there. Give us the details. How does the course look compared to 3 weeks ago? Is it different? Are we going to see different conditions than we saw 2 weeks ago?
Well, hopefully we're not going to have the absolute wild winds that we had during the Farmers Insurance Open, where it was absolutely brutal. But it is going to be up. The gusts are going to be around 25 miles an hour the first 2 rounds, if the forecast holds true. And as I said earlier, we've also got some rain coming in, and that's going to make this rough juicy and wet and really hard to control your ball, especially if it goes down in there deep. As I said, I went out there earlier. It's legit. It is rough stuff. And if you're not keeping it on the map, you're not controlling your ball into the green. So, even with short clubs, if it's wet, that's going to be tough. So I'm very interested to see who the grinders are, who's prepared to go. And the wrinkle here from 3 weeks ago is there's no North Course round. There's no ability to have that sort of breather and throw out a low one. You are stuck with what you've got for 4 rounds. You better be ready for the grind. Otherwise, you're going home.
Yeah, I do think, Chris, that the rain is going to be the X factor this week, both because it's going to make your misses that much more penalized because it's going to be harder to get out of that wet rough, but it's also going to give you an advantage if you keep it on the short stuff, because now the greens are a little bit more receptive. The Poana greens that are always so fickle at Torrey South, maybe you can get a little closer. Maybe you can reach the par 5s and hold the greens or spin your wedges back a little bit more. I do think when we talk about that weather that we saw a couple weeks ago with that crazy wind, especially, it was a Wednesday start, so I get my days mixed up here, but the Thursday into Friday for the second and third rounds, when you look at the results from the guys that played the Farmers a couple weeks ago, you have to remember where they were on the draw, because there was a significant draw bias. The guys that went to the North Course for the second round, that was supposed to be that breather that Ben talked about, they got blown out to sea. And so some players, maybe all miscuts are not created equal. When you look at what they did a couple weeks ago, I'm willing to discount that, especially for players that we'll get into in a little bit that have a pretty strong track record at this event. Maybe they didn't fare so well last month.
Will makes a great point. I think if you are looking back to Farmers 3 weeks ago, you can take the positives out of guys who played well, but I would take less significance out of the guys that missed cuts or didn't necessarily play well because of how nutso the side of the draw and just 2 days of wild wins, including the final round, etc., was rough. So I think if you get rid of the bad, but still you can use some of the good.
So moral of the story, if you're out there betting and looking at 3 weeks ago at the Farmers, don't exactly take too much cadence in what happened to some of these players. If they're playing well, you think they're going to do good this week. Maybe that miscut where they shoot 77, 78 on that brutal conditions in round 2 on the South Course, not going to be too much big of a deal. Safe to say, guys, before we move on? That's safe to say?
Yeah, we're going to look foolish when Harris English wins again. I don't know, but it's a chance I'm willing to take.
All right, Let's get into the picks, boys. Back to it this week. Our DraftKings Rapid Fire segment. Will versus Ben. We have the top players in the world. We are going to start with Justin Thomas and Hideki Matsuyama for a top 10.
Oh, give me JT, Ben. I like that plus 150 number coming off the hole out on the 72nd hole in Phoenix. Hideki Matsuyama won early this year at the Century, but a little secret, he's spraying it everywhere off the tee. 106th strokes gained off the tee this year. That's not going to do it at Torrey Pines.
I probably have to agree, although I will say that Hideki had his full crew looking after him and trying to sink things in last week, so maybe he's got to fix him.
2 more top 10s. Ludwig Cantlay, both about 200.
Give me Patty Ice. Listen, I feel like you're going to go the other way on me here, Ben. But Patrick Cantlay has been pretty solid early in 2025, and he's got a pretty decent track record at Torrey Pines to sort of chip away at it. I don't need him to win. I know it's been a struggle, but plus 240 for a top 10. Yes, sir.
Your money is gone picking that one, let me tell you. Ludwig Oberg, he is going to dominate this place. Look, I watched him on the range a bit earlier. Let me tell you, looking very good.
All right, we ran out of time, but we got to do it. Different market, similar odds. Scottie top 5, Rory top 10.
I'll take the chef. When in doubt, take Scottie Scheffler, and I will, even though a top 5 is a high bar to clear, it's only 72 guys this week, so I think that he's got a good shot at getting there.
Rory McIlroy top 10, absolutely. As I said, this place is built for him. My only concern there would be if he's not going to win, is he going to grind to the top 10? That's the only worry.
All right, guys, we've talked about just about every star except for Jordan Spieth. The fact that he came back last week at that T4, everybody who's a Spieth fan wants to see this guy succeed. The bank is open. You tell me if you're buying or you're passing for a top 20 with ties. He's only got to beat about, 60-ish kind of players, plus 120 for Jordan Spieth to be in the top 20. Will, do you buy or do you sell?
Keep the bank closed, Chris. I'm not there yet. We made so much about last week when he hadn't been within 12 shots of the lead. He had this great finish. He still lost by 8. I mean, no one was catching Thomas Dietrich, but there was still a pretty good gap, and he was an absolute magician with some of those shots. You're thinking the left-handed putter, the shot he hit from front right of 17 on Sunday. You're not going to have those escape options at Torrey Pines, especially on the South Course. I'm more concerned that the shots that led him to those situations are still going to be there, especially off the tee. He's not going to have the scramble options. And yes, you're right. It's a pretty decent bar to try and clear. If you've got 72 guys, you're going to cut it to top 50 in ties on the weekend, but I still need a little bit more on that plus money side to get me to buy in on Jordan for a top 10.
He made some ridiculous saves out there in the desert, but you just, like you said, Will, he can't do that here. Like, you can't carve a shot from thick, deep rough, around a corner and up a bend and over a hill. You just can't do it. And so unless he really dials in that accuracy and goes mental on the greens, this is going to be a tough one. Now, look, if that number was double, then it might be worth throwing something on. But I just don't think you're getting enough bank building in your bank builder, Chris.
All right, if you don't like that prop, give me the props that you do like, Will.
Yeah, listen, the stash is working for Keegan Bradley. I don't know what to say. He's got the TGL thing with the Frogs. He's got the U.S. Ryder Cup captaincy. It's all coming together for our man Keegs, who has a really good track record at Torrey Pines, 3 top 5 finishes, including a runner-up over the last few years. And he was on the right side of the draw a couple weeks ago, finished T15 at this event. So this is a place that really stands out for him in terms of past course performance. He's gotten off to a solid start this year, including a top 10 finish at the Sony Open. So I like what I'm seeing tee to green out of Keegan Bradley, and he is among those guys in the field this week that, you know what, their ears probably perked up a little bit when they learned that Torrey Pines was going to be the host, because this is just a place that really has stood out for him in a good way for past performance.
Yeah, all right. I can't get over that. I can't get over that, Mo. I just can't do it. I can't. So you're out.
Well, Benny,
the ringing endorsement from Ben. That's good. That's all I need.
Benny, there's a lot going on, a lot of hype on Taylor Pendrith. Why is he a prop bet for you this week?
Because he's 3rd strokes gained off the tee, and he's like way up there in bogey avoidance as well. This course is made for him. He did play well, obviously, on the correct side of the draw at Torrey for a top 10. He was my top 10 3 weeks ago, and he got it done. You can go conservative for top 20 this week and get plus money. So I'm all over that. I think that Taylor Pendrith is built for this. Whether or not he wins is a different story. But if you're getting plus money to beat, as you said, like a third or whatever, just over a third of the field, it seems like that's the bank builder you need to be on, mate. That's the bank builder right there.
You know what? Those numbers that you just brought up are basically partially the reason why I have Sung Jae Im as my winner this week. Yes, he's good off the tee, but guys, if we're going to keep talking about a hot name like Taylor Pendrith, Sung Jae Im is a person people keep on bringing up every single week, and you wonder if he's going to win. If I'm going to subscribe to that fact, and I do think Sung Jae will win eventually in the next year, 2, or whenever it is, I would assume it's going to be at a place where he has had a T4, a T4, and a T6, all recently in the last couple of years, Will. Are you in that boat that thinks Sung Jae is going to win sometime soon? Because if it is, this makes sense.
Are we talking soon, or are we talking within the next year or two?
I mean,
because those were 2 different timelines that you threw out. I don't know that. I don't know that he's going to win this week. I get what you're saying. You know, he's won at PGA National, which is another difficult course. Doesn't quite set up apples to apples in terms of the water that you would encounter at Torrey Pines or lack thereof. But this is a place where he has had some success. Again, we're growing this sample size of really strong caliber players that haven't won in a year, 2 years, 3 years on the PGA Tour. And at some point, those floodgates are going to open for guys like Colin Morikawa and Justin Thomas, Sung Jae Im, Will Zalatoris. The list goes on and on of players that you would expect to get in the winner's circle more than they have. Sung Jae is certainly in that group. 35-1 this week against this field feels like a pretty fair number. But are you going to have to go how many times to the well in order to get a winner over these next year or two for Sung Jae, even when the stats kind of line up? That's where I'm at. A lot of times the numbers have pointed me towards Sung Jae Im in the last few months, and now I'm starting to shy away from it just because he hasn't been able to get it done, and it's been a little bit of a feast or famine start to 2025 for Sung Jae.
That was the Colin Morikawa theory from last year. You keep betting him to win, thinking it's going to happen. It doesn't happen, and you're in a massive hole.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of those
100%.
guys. Patrick Cantlay is another one in that mix of they should have more wins over the last year or two than they do. At some point, that's going to change. Scottie Scheffler can't scoop every trophy within sight, but trying to bank on when exactly those droughts are going to break is a little bit tricky.
I think that the similar players that you're talking about, mate, before I get in my winner there.
Sorry.
One that we're not sort of mentioning. No, one that we're not mentioning first is Morikawa, who you said. I think Morikawa is, if anyone's going to jump out of that box this week, it would be Morikawa for me. Not my pick. You can go there now. We just saw it. I'm going back to the well.
I mean, we're not talking about Ludwig.
You got to explain this one to me, Ben.
Scary.
You got to
We're
sell
not
me.
talking about him.
I'm going to tell you, off the tee to green, driving distance, smashes the ball. This place is made for him. And I'm telling you, I went for a beeline this morning, straight to the range to see how he was feeling, to see how he was looking. And he had it on a frozen rope. He's just smashing drivers, smashing three-wood, smashing long irons, had everything dialed in. He was laughing. He was having a good time. He was ready. I'm like, I was on him 3 weeks ago, and he started well and got sick and puked his guts up all over this place. Well, now he's ready to get redemption. Now he's ready to go after it. I just think the length and everything, let's get back in now. Let's go, Ludwig.
What about at Pebble? Was it sickness that he was getting over, or was it just a bad week? What do you guys think?
I think it's a combination. To be fair, he said, I had some people tell me he was feeling good there. Obviously, I wasn't there to see that for myself, which I did do today. And I think, though, he had a little bit of remnants left over. Maybe not a lot, but when he started poorly, that was enough of a banked-up excuse in his brain to sort of let it go and then go, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to get full fitness and be ready to attack Tories in a couple of weeks. And that's where he is right now, laughing, smiling, ready to attack. And he, honestly, there were other tour pros stopping and listening and watching his ball flight on the range this morning, just going, wow. So it got me straight back in.
Ben, you're on the ground. I trust those eyes, and I think that's a really good perspective to lend because there are questions for me about his health and his fitness coming off of that WD at Pebble, knowing how he was just in rough shape at Torrey Pines a couple weeks ago. But the asterisk that I will throw on that, you mentioned you get off to that hot start a couple weeks ago at the Farmers. It was on the other course. The course they're not playing this week. The 3 rounds that he had on the South course, they were all 74 or above. He got blown sideways by that wind. The success he had that week was not on the course they're facing over these next 4 days.
Meanwhile, go ahead, Benny.
Go ahead, Ben. Defend yourself.
I keep jumping the gun because
it's all right.
Your winner, Will, loves the South course.
Yes, very much so. 6 top 10 finishes, has done everything but win on this course, and is coming off a T13 at Pebble Beach. Might be in that bucket of people that we've talked about, like we said before, with Colin Morikawa and Sung Jae. But Finau has picked off a couple of wins in the last couple of years after going so long waiting for win number 2 early in his career. And I just feel like this is, of course, going back to how much Ben is bullish on what Rory McIlroy can do off the tee. Last time I checked, Tony Finau's got an extra gear that he's able to unleash off the tee as well, especially on and around this course. And I like that he's kind of flying a little bit under the radar, where he played well at Pebble a couple weeks ago, but not too well. Now he's on a course where he really should be able to shine. Tee to green, no one can putt the Poa in. It's not going to be any issue. Ben, keep shaking your head and tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. You just told me that you're worried about Ludwig's fitness. Well, we've got this bloke who's come back from knee surgery and everything else, and he hasn't proven that he's 100% fit yet. He hasn't proven that he's ready to do that. He's like, look, I think he's a great pick for a potential place market, right? He, again, one of the guys that missed the cut, like Sanjay, I believe, or a few others that missed a few weeks ago that were a bit off the radar and got drilled by the wind. I don't take much stock into that. I do like his past performance here, as you said, prior to that. I just don't think he's ready to win yet. I just don't think he's ready to take it all the way. Whereas, I'll tell you what though, how good would it be? This signature event. I love it when we got the big names, right? Let's think about it. We got Rory, Sheff, Tony Finau, Ludwig. Like, let's get them all there Sunday in this grind and then see what happens. I'm actually super excited to see how this goes.
Is it me, or does it feel like Ben is in like super close quarters with like 14 other people right now, and they're all listening to his takes right now in the media center, like taking notes, like that's
good.
Right, that's wrong. That's
we should
right,
have him
wrong.
corralled more often, Chris.
There's everyone around. Hideki's going to walk in soon for a presser, and I'm going to be gibbering about how he can win or not win. It's good stuff.